Canada's outgoing Prime Minister has pledged a big increase in health care spending as part of his final budget plan. Jean Chrétien, who is stepping down as Prime Minister in 1 year, also promised more money for military spending. Joining us now with more on Canada's budget plan and where the nation sees itself globally is Secretary of State for Finance, Maurizio Bevilacqua. Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon.
This budget has been described by Canada's Globe and Mail as old-style, big spending blueprint. It's 20% increases in spending in health, in military, on environmental programs, and on social programs. It's something that's usually reserved for electioneering. What's behind this increase in spending?
Actually, what this budget is truly about is about getting another balanced budget, and we're going to have a balanced budget this year and for the next 2 years. As you remember, back in the early 1990s, Canada was referred to by the Wall Street Journal as an economic basket case. No longer. We have been able to roll up our sleeves and bring about a great economic renaissance where we've seen consecutive balanced budgets, surpluses, as well as the elimination of the deficit, bringing about major savings that we have, of course, reinvested in key social and economic areas such as healthcare. We've also introduced major tax cuts, $100 billion tax cut, which has made the Canadian tax system very competitive with the United States.
Which is a big problem because non-competitive taxes have led to a lot of Canadians going to the United States in many cases.
But what's happened here, part of this renaissance has been also job creation. Over 560,000 jobs were created last year alone. This is amazing results, but it's not surprising because we're very disciplined by eliminating the deficit and taking on the type of measures that were required. We look to the future with a great deal of optimism, and we're very mindful of the North American economic space that we live in.
We live in a world of geopolitical tension, obviously. The U.S. has seen its defense budget balloon somewhat during the Republican administration.
Yes.
As part of this budgetary process in Canada, is the defense budget picking up a bit to reflect these times?
Yes, absolutely. $800 million this year, but the entire package is approximately $2.4 billion, which is a substantial increase.
One of the things that back when the Wall Street Journal referred to Canada as an economic basket case, one of the problems was that of all the, I guess at the time, G7 countries, Canada's unemployment rate was higher than anybody else's. While you've got competitive growth rates and inflation rates, what's going on in unemployment?
We have the best job creation numbers of G7, and we're going to lead the G7 this year and next year, according to the IMF and OECD. These are great times for the Canadian economy. But it's no wonder. We were very disciplined and focused on an economic plan that spoke about getting the fundamentals right, as I said earlier, eliminating the deficit, reducing the national debt, making strategic investment in research and development and other areas that bring about greater economic growth. It's a pro-growth agenda. It's working well.
A lot of success in Canada is dependent upon a good engine down here in the United States. With currency changes, I mean, Canada's been complaining for a long time about the currency not being strong enough, for the U.S. currency having a detrimental effect. What's happening now that we're seeing a weakening of the U.S. dollar? Canada's kind of enjoyed having a weak dollar compared to the U.S. It's been able to sell a lot of goods to the U.S. because of a highly competitive currency. What does a weakening of the U.S. dollar do?
Well, we're going to get to go into the Bank of Canada to answer that question, but what I will answer is a question on fiscal policy. And fiscal policy has resulted in great advantages made by the Canadian investment community, and that's the reason why you have this type of growth, over 3% the next two years. You have the disposable income rising at a great rate, and so which essentially means that Canada is a country to watch because it's becoming a northern tiger.
What about inflation? Canada, I believe, has kept inflation within a 1 to 3% band on the core inflation side of things. If you're talking about 3% growth, better growth in the United States, and an increased engine, a northern tiger, don't you have to worry about inflation?
Well, and the Bank of Canada still hasn't changed its stand. It's between 1 and 3. That's where we'll be. But the point here is, and the message is clear, there is an economic renaissance occurring in Canada. An economic renaissance that speaks to greater opportunity, a better standard of living, greater productivity, and a better quality of life.
What does that do right now in your mission that you're down here in New York, you're talking to analysts, you're talking to investors? Is that compelling to people to want to do business in Canada?
Yes, it's important to get that message out. As you know, we perhaps don't talk enough about our successes. And this is one of the things that I bring to this job. I want to make sure that the world knows that Canada, its economy is alive and well.
Maurizio Bevilacqua is the Secretary of State for Finance of Canada. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.